Hi, I'm Dr. Diane Duckett, and welcome to another episode of Becoming You. This podcast is to help assist you in becoming a better, successful you in life and in business. I'm delighted to share with you today on just that. We know that becoming a better you takes work. In fact, it takes a lot of work that we sometimes really don't want to do on our future self. Yes, I want to talk to you about connecting with your future self. I know many, including myself, imagine what the future will look like and to know their future will end up and not really connecting with their future self to see the possibilities. Because there is so much fear and anxiety, massive changes in one's life. And that could be something like going after, that's why it could be hard for some to meet their future self. Did you know researchers have found that people with their self is going to look like, guess what's going to happen? You're actually going to take care of your current self because you know sure that your current self is lining up for your future self. And so you're going to take care of yourself, maybe health wise, maybe smart wise. You will already, when we are trying to work on creating our future selves, and most of the time there may be two rewards. You see, sometimes we want immediate gratification. This is the voice that wants you to do what it is that you want to do and not really go beyond what you want to do at that moment. Sometimes, we get all caught up in doing things that, is not meant for us to do, and we make choices because it's going to land because we're so caught up in self. And so we have to really truly get rid of self, because when we don't get rid of self, guess what? We don't know the power of truth. We don't know the higher self. Our higher self is trying to the message that our higher and divine gratification. We can't see. We see immediate results, but sometimes those immediate results won't last, and they won't last forever. And it's because of this we often gravitate face value that we can see in front of us. That's the thing that's going to pull us the more, because that's what we want, the gratification. That's where we want our gratification to come from. And so, because that's what we want for ourselves. We do this because the future can feel abstract and intangible, while the present moment is right in front of us. So don't allow we can't allow the temporary moment, to make us miss what our future self is becoming, right? We cannot, moment, and the thing about it is that this is our future self, it's just a permanent moment. When we accept the temporary moment, we will feel disconnected from our future self, and you won't understand where your future self is where your future self take you. And so making it harder to connect with how we might feel when our goals is accomplished. So for example, in the moment, we might choose to eat that piece of cake because it's delicious, right? Because we know we want to become a healthier version of ourselves, but our long-term goal about a parent. Why? Because we can't see it. We just cannot see it. So we will eat that piece, and we will eat that piece of cake good, and we probably will go for another slice because that cake is so good, because that's what we want at that moment, right? But not realizing or recognizing what we want our future self to look like. And so if you're in a position where, you're just not feeling yourself in the way that you look. You gained some extra couple of pounds during this quarantine. And guess what? This quarantine is going to be over, and you got to get back out there and get back into them jeans or get back into that dress. And guess what? It's not going to fit, right? Because you was not thinking about your future self. All you other slice. And so now, you are stuck because you wanted, instant or immediate gratification that was only going to be temporary because you wanted to have that for yourself, right? So because of this first voice, it wants to give us immediate gratification. Like, it really wants to give us immediate gratification that is only a temporary moment. So we have to inner voice on the inside of us to gain the power we need to see our future self becoming more than our past or our present self, right? We have to be able to hear that inner voice so that we can, know what our future self is going to look like, as, taught us, and what our present brought us. But now we have a future that we must go to, and we need to be able to connect, with our inner voice, with our inner self, so that we can see our future self. Now, the second voice is the voice that speaks moment. Like, it's like a wow moment, it's like a moment that, it's like, wow, it's like a wow moment, a aha moment. And that second voice is the voice that gives us power, right? That second voice helps us to envision our future self. That second voice is a quiet, thoughtful voice encouraging us to, consider, our long-term outcomes and our long-term goals. When you are trying to stick to a goal or overcome a challenge, you will be more successful if you can tune into what will feel good in the long term and quiet down what feels good right now, right? So if something is feeling good right now, you need to quiet that thing down, because that right there is not going to get you anywhere. But if you focus on, the long-term goal of where your future self is going to become, guess what? You're going to be able to see yourself in your future more. So when we adapt this mindset and focus on the long term, your present self will grow into your future self. And yeah, it's a mindset. It's a mindset that we have to adapt ourselves to, because our mind, can go, it can be wishy-washy. It can go here, it can be there, it can be everywhere, right? And so we have to, condition our mindset to focus on, what's the future selves gonna land up or be, maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, or 5 years from now. Where's our future self going to be, right? So at that, I want you to think about your future self. Just take a little bit, take a, couple minutes yourself. Just think about your future self. And as you think about your future self, where will your future self be a year from now? Where will your future self be a year from now? And how will you manifest yourself? And you must understand is this. You must create a mindset that's going to set you up for your future self, because your future self is waiting for you to get to the place I should be doing with my life. What is it that I should be doing with my time? What is it that I should be doing with my energy right now? And to get to be or want to be, your answers will come from a deep inner place of knowing versus the conditioned thinking of your current mindset, right? We have to look at our mindset. Where's your mindset, when it comes to you honoring, towards your current mindset is often influenced or manipulated by outside voices. We have these outside influences, that will tell us we can do this and we can do that, but those outside influences, can't determine, our future self, so sometimes those outside voices will keep you from moving towards your future self, because those outside voices don't want to see you get to your future self. So you'll receive a clear, tangible, and emotional experience seeing what your future self sees. Having what is has doing what it does, and this accelerates your now reality to help you move closer to embodying your true future self. And to get to this position, you will need to do further meditations, or self, future self meditations. Is one, connecting with yourself on a soul level, right? So what does it mean to connect with yourself on a soul level? It means that it's you feeling in alignment with your highest self, right? It's feeling capable, strong, loving, and compassionate. It's a sense of knowingness and wisdom that is completely unique to you. And so when we're connecting to our highest self or our higher self or our divine self, guess what? We're becoming in alignment with our soul, because our soul wants to be in alignment with our higher self, our divine self, or our highest self. So yeah, we have to get to that place, where we're able to acknowledge that. And so lately, I have been searching for more ways to feel a connection with my future self, because I have been feeling the need to connect. And I believe that, my future self, wants to share a whole lot of things, with me. And I can see, where my future self is going to be, and so it's like, how do I, get to where I see my future self is going to be. And so when you're trying, when you have been in that position of feeling the need to connect, it is telling you, your higher self, your divine self is saying, hey, I need to show you, something. I need to, give you a message to tell you, here's, what I need to say, or here's what I want to show you. So it's so easy to go through the ins and outs of life and forget some of the important things, which is connection. And connection for me is very important. And so if I'm connecting with myself, I'm doing myself, I'm honoring myself, because I want myself, to see the possibilities that God has for me, and what God wants for me pertaining to my life. And I'm sure you may have felt this way before as well. And so sometimes or something that we should be doing on a daily basis is a form of meditation to find that connection. I mean, an important part, of us, understanding or, seeking this form of meditation is to help us to find that connection, higher self. And that means that, we have to sit with ourselves. We have to sit with ourselves, because there is a benefit of sitting with yourself. You make sure that before you begin your day, start out with a few minutes of meditation. Yes, start out with a few minutes or moments of meditation, because meditation is an instant connector with your higher self, with your divine self. It lets you know where you stand and how you're feeling, and it prepares you to enter your day. It prepares you to enter the work, and as well as help you to connect with your future self. I remember hearing a powerful story from a lady who was going through a very difficult transition. You see, her husband divorced her to be with another woman, and her husband left her and the children homeless. Like, he just, got up, said, I want a divorce, because he was, into this other woman. And so he chose to leave his wife and his family behind. And so her husband left her and the children homeless. So the children and her, she and the children had no place to stay, sleep, or no place to stay. They actually was sleeping in the car. And so, yes, she was homeless, and she did not know where to turn. So she began reading the word, she began praying, and she began meditating. And she found that when she was meditating, she saw her future self. She saw herself bigger, and she saw herself better. And the life she saw her future self in, she couldn't believe it, because, she was like, who, this, me? I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to have this. And, it was like an unbelief at the moment. But as she was like, as she, was like basically meditating every single day, she kept on seeing the same vision of her future self. She kept seeing the same vision of her future self. And then, so because she began to see this same vision of her future self, she began to honor that vision. She began to believe in that vision, and she did not know how it was going to happen, but she started believing even more every time she saw that vision of herself. Then one day she was offered an opportunity, and that opportunity made her a millionaire today. She is literally a millionaire today. She went from homeless, divorced, husband leaving her for another woman, leaving her and her children homeless, right? And today she's a millionaire, right? And so this is a side note. The awesome part of that, her husband, her ex-husband needed her help. He needed her help to help him get back on his feet from leaving her for another woman, right? So she got him the car to look for work, and she paid for his apartment for like 6 months. But you see, she would not have known she was going to live the life she is now living if she would have never sat down, and began that art of meditation, and seeing that vision of what her future self, was going to become. If she would not have taken the time to connect with her higher self, her divine self, she would have never saw the vision of her future self, right? She now is living what her past self showed her. Our past self, will show you what your future self, will become. And so she now is living what her past self showed her about her future self. You see, there is power in the art of meditation, because meditation will put you in a position of connecting with your higher self, your divine self, to understand your future self. Thus, if you want to connect to your future self, you must connect to your higher self. You must connect to your divine self. It is said that the higher self is the self that exists at an even higher level than the soul. We all have a higher self, or divine self. We were born with it. Everybody is born with a higher and divine self. It's the source of all light and life that is within you, and your true motivation for living. Your divine self is what powers you and makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. So, when you are connected, with your divine self, with your higher self, it's going to give you some power. It's going to make you wonder, and it's going to begin having you think, and it's going to begin showing you the visions of what your future self is going to be like. It's the soul light at your core, because the soul is closer to the personality of your future self, and your future self is waiting for such a time for you to directly experience and realize the higher and divine self as who you are. So it is very important to connect with yourself on a soul level through the art of meditation, because that's going to help you discover your future. So connecting on this level, you must sit quietly. You must find a calm and quiet place to spend some time in. You must set your intentions on what you want to receive and be by yourself, and our divine self wants to send through us. I'm using both divine and higher because some people can recognize divine and some people can recognize higher. So I'm using those both at the same time. And two, you must spend some time with nature. And being in nature immediately helps to shift your energy and connect you with your higher self. There is something comforting about being in nature. It's as if spending time in nature is like a power boost to align us to our inner light, and help us to feel whole. And sometimes nature is the best way to make a connection with ourselves, to connect with our higher self and feel the love that nature brings to us. Even in nature, right? Nature can connect you with your future self. Why? Because nature revives our energy and inner spirit, and can teach us major lessons if we are willing to observe and understand. Albert Einstein professed that, he said, look deep into nature and then you will understand everything better. Look deep into nature and then you will understand everything better. Look deep into nature and then you will understand everything better. Nature does something for us. Nature helps us to look deeply. Nature helps us to understand everything better. Nature gives you a sense of serenity. Being in nature demands very little of us. Nature is just what nature just wants us to relax and reflect on its beauty and bliss. Anthony Williams stated, "Silence has a mysterious calming effect, allowing your soul to be at peace with your thoughts." Nature helps us to be at peace with our thoughts. Nature helps us to silence the noise around us, right? And it gives us a calming effect that allows our soul to go to basically another realm that our soul hasn't touched, before. And so, and that's touching your higher self, your divine self. And when that happens, guess what? Your divine self, your higher self begins to share with you things about yourself. And because of its calming effect, nature, it can connect you with your future self. So for me, I love being in nature because when I'm in nature, I feel relaxed. I feel connected. I feel empowered. Like, I just love nature because the sound of nature is just so soothing. Like when you're out there, you could be just sitting on a bench, or you could be jogging, or you can be walking, whatever the case may be. Nature just does something to the human body, to the human mind, that gets you into a position where, guess what? You can just feel the power of what nature is trying to do for you. And I found that when I hang out with nature, I'm able to hear even more. It's like, I could be, doing my daily walk, and I'll begin, doing it, walking quietly and stuff like that. But then I'll hear, my inner voice share, or my higher self, or my divine self, speaking to me. Like I'll hear, the voice, and I'll hear, and I'll be like, oh wow, and I'll be like, I'll be like really into it. And it's like, cause it's like, it comes out of nowhere. Like it's something that you're not even expecting, because it's coming out of nowhere, because that's the effect that nature has on the human mind, and the human body. So, I'm able to hear even more, see even more, and imagine even more because I'm out in nature. Why? Because I believe that nature helps me to connect with my higher self, my divine self, and being in nature can ultimately connect you with your future self if you are open to receiving the connection, right? You have to be open to receiving the connection so that your higher self or your divine self can now enter in. Another thing, to help to connect with your future self, journaling. Of course, I talked about journaling before. Journaling is another way to connect with your future self. And sometimes we have so many thoughts going through our minds, it's hard to keep track of what's going on. And so journaling is a tool that can help you see your future self in ways you never saw yourself before. And so as you journal, envision your future self, open that journal, get your pen ready, envision your future self. What do you, when you're envisioning your future self? Are there any obstacles that you have to overcome to your future self? And how does that make you feel? How does this make your future self feel? And how will you make this happen for your future self? These are just some questions, that you want to journal yourself is going to be in the future. And as you journal, take a moment to listen deeply. Your voice is sharing with you, because your inner voice is not going to lie. Some people say it's intuition. Some people just say, something just spoke to me. That's your inner voice. That's your divine self. That's the view of your future you put in your journal in writing, and start showing yourself moment, but the present moment is only a moment, and we have to realize that this present moment is going to leave us, because guess what? Today is present, but tomorrow is our future. So we are in our present. So what is your future self saying to you about you tomorrow, right? What is your future, what you're going to become on tomorrow? Because that's the future. And then once that leaves, you're going to have another day. So you got to look at the long-term goal of where your future self is trying to connect you. You got to look at, your long-term goals and set those with your future. You align yourself up with that. How will you come in alignment with, with your future? And where you're going. I love that story of that young lady, who woman self, she saw, her future self through the art of meditation. She was able to see herself, in a new and grand place. Sometimes, when you're not because all you are saying to yourself is that you're good right now, and I don't need nothing else. But when you become, when you get to that place when you are between a rock and a hard place moments, because it's going to force you to take that time, to pray, to read God's word, and to meditate. And that meditation is going to pull out some things, in you, and it's going to show you some things that's going to be good for you in the long run. And so we must take these things into practice. We must make this thing a practice, and that's why we have to set our mindset so we can have right thinking, so that we don't have any negative thinking in our mind, so that everything is positive, and so that we can manifest the best for our life. Because ultimately, we want to become, and whoever is connected to us, we want them to join us, in our future, with our future self, so they can even become the best version of themselves. So you have to put yourself in position, to be able to hear, your sharing self. Put that letter and act like you writing a letter, well, you are, and you don't act like, but you are writing a letter. You're going to fold it, you're going to put it in an envelope, and you're going to put a name, dear future. You're going to say to future self, and you're going to self. And then, maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, open up that letter to see what your future self. This was a podcast to help you to just think about, connecting with your future self, so that you can see yourself in the future. I'm Duckett, and thank you for listening to another podcast of Becoming You.